Well, hello. Good afternoon, Nicole and Tanya. How are you both doing today?
I'm great. You?
Good, good. How's this day finding you? Cold, warm, snow, no snow?
It's winter in Canada. I just go with it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, I'm very excited to speak with both of you today, and thank you for coming on to Rare Awareness Radio, helping to contribute to our series associated with PKU, and very specifically with your foundation, with your organization, CanPKU Plus. And Nicole and Tanya, I'm really excited to have both of you here today. Let's start with both of you just kind of saying hello, introducing yourselves in your role within the organization. I think that really important level set before we kind of jump into the conversation. So, Tanya, I'll have you go first.
Okay. Hi,
Mhm.
I'm Tanya. I'm a mom with a PKUer and starting out as a volunteer, but moving through the experience and the years, I am currently CEO at CanPKU.
Love
Um,
it.
yeah, president and of the not for profit. And
Wonderful.
Nicole, go ahead.
Nicole?
Hi, Nicole Pallone. I am also the mom of a PKUer, which is what introduced me to the rare disease community. I've been involved with CanPKU Plus for a long time. I've served on the board for several years, and I'm currently chair of the board.
Wow. Excellent. So, really talking to the top of the organization here, and we really appreciate it so much more that you're taking the time to chat with us. And as we've continued to have these conversations, we've been recording them a little bit out of order, I guess, but as people have been available. But it's been a really eye-opening for me. I didn't know a lot about PKU. I knew the initials. I had seen it. It was something that I certainly needed to be introduced to more. You both just mentioned that you are moms of PKUers. First time I've heard that term as well. So you both have a very personal connection to PKU. Maybe we'll start, Nicole, with your sort of personal story and tell us a little bit about that, and then Tanya, you can maybe hopefully fill in some of the gaps around your personal story as well.
Sure, yeah. I had never heard of Phenylketonuria,
Hmm.
PKU for short, until 3 days after Rosie was born, when we'd just gotten home from the hospital and the phone rang, and it was the hospital again telling us to urgently pack up and go back and be prepared to spend a week there
Wow.
because Rosie's newborn screening test had screened positive for PKU.
Mm, mm. And this was how many days per postpartum, Nicole?
3 days.
Wow. Wow. Crazy. Tanya, how about your story?
Yeah, it's the common thread we often hear is that I got that phone call or
Right.
the phone call that started it all. Jacob is unique as ever. He was born early at just over 2 pounds,
Oh,
and if that wasn't enough chaos for the family, he also
sure.
decided to say, "Hey, maybe I have this weird disorder you can't pronounce." But because of his prematurity and the rarity of the condition, they it took months before we
Mm,
actually arrived at the full understanding that we have now.
mhm.
So yeah, ours was a little bit of a longer journey to get there, but nonetheless, we had no idea what it was until he said, "Hey, this is what
Yeah.
I have."
Yeah, and then we've talked to so many rare disease parents, and usually this moment of diagnosis, right, and what it means for your family and the impact, and because there's so little information out there, sort of the common thread that I've heard is you try to drive into this understanding, kind of search all in the internet till you reach its end, as they say, right, trying to find out as much as you possibly can. Tanya, what did you understand at the beginning and how did you sounds like nothing, which is very reasonable, but, where did you go? Where did you go from there, I guess? What was your first sort of
We
step?
understood very, very little,
Yeah,
and they told us don't Google,
don't.
which
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You can tell me that. That's not what's gonna happen. So of course we were Googling everything we possibly could. And it wasn't that single dramatic moment for us
Mm,
because they were like, "Well, he probably doesn't have it. He's probably just too immature in
mm,
development that he's flagging that he might. So
sure.
don't worry about it." So for us, it was probably 6 to 9 months of uncertainty and
Wow.
waiting, just trying to figure out what we needed to know.
Wow.
Um and it took almost all that time, despite Googling. I kept
Mhm.
coming up with the American and Australia, all these other organizations. It took me almost a year to find out that Canada even had one, and when I did, um, it was Nicole. Nicole was
Wow.
the one that provided me all the support I needed to know that this is where I belonged.
Tanya, how many weeks premature was he?
Jake was born at 27 weeks gestation,
27 weeks.
so
Okay.
3
Yeah.
months, yeah.
So yeah, 3 months. Wow. Amazing. And so for Nicole, a little different experience for you, kind of 2, 3 days in postpartum. But it sounds like you were able to be there for Tanya at a time when she certainly had a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah, I think that's one of the great things about the organization is the ability to connect families with other families that are at a similar stage in their journey, whether that is with a newborn or
Mm,
later on. Sometimes patients are late diagnosed for various reasons or have moved here from a different country. Or it's sometimes an adult who has been off diet for many years and is returning and they struggle and need support often as well. So being able to connect people that way is a huge part of what we do.
mm. You just mentioned the diet aspect, Nicole, right? And from what I've learned, and I'm still learning, such an important part of management. Can you talk a little bit about that and sort of the day to day management and really what that actually means for someone?
Yeah, boy, that's a loaded question that I could
Mhm.
talk a long time on. But in a nutshell, it was the first treatment available for PKU, which was the first treatment for any kind of genetic condition. So PKU is really a breakthrough condition in a lot of ways. It's why newborn screening was first developed, for instance. So the diet management itself, um, it varies a lot by patient
Mhm,
because I often refer to PKU as a spectrum disorder.
mhm,
People are becoming more and more familiar with that term through other disorders, and it's very true for PKU as well because there's a different severity and different tolerances people have. So, by that, I mean different amounts of protein that each patient can safely ingest and utilize each day without there being any negative effects. So, some people might only be able to have 2 grams of protein a day, while others can have 12 or 20 or 40 or even more. It just really depends on the individual. So it can be very, very restrictive um, or less so, depending on the patient.
yeah. And maybe this is a good segue too, Tanya, from an independence perspective as people get as the children grow and get older. I mean, I'm a parent, so understand a little bit about the independence factor that we all go through as parents, right? And you hope that you're raising your children to be independent. You've got a little bit more sophistication there, right? So how has that kind of work and journey been around making sure that your PKU child understands their condition and can be independent in their management or work towards independence in their management?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we hear, the diet saves lives, and it
Mm,
does. But it's more than a diet. It's what comes with that diet. It's the measuring the protein, the preparing the low protein foods. It's
mm,
managing the formula, being 3 steps ahead in your planning.
mm,
And we never wanted, and I took this from Nicole's plate. We never wanted him to feel like he was all that different. So I was always those 3 steps ahead to make sure he didn't feel it. Because there's no day off, right?
yeah.
It's more than just that. It's teaching him, like, there's the mental load, anxiety that comes in,
Mhm,
isolate I can't speak, social isolation, during these food-centered events. So it's definitely a lot, but, taking Nicole's advice when he was probably 2, his play centers focused around PKU, and
mm,
we taught him from a very early age, so this is all it's all normal to him. He's been cooking the same time as his sisters learned how to cook. He was just cooking different food.
I really appreciate what you just said too about there's no days off, right? Because I think people think, oh, a diet means that I can take days off. I have cheat days. I do whatever that's associated with that. And I told this story before, and it still sticks with me. I remember I was in the fourth grade, and there was a female child in the class, and she had diabetes, and she had to have different snacks than the rest of us, right? And at the time, like we as kids couldn't wrap our heads around it, right? Why is she eating something different? What is diabetes? What does that mean? Um, and now I look back and I think about how isolating that must have felt for her, right, at the time. And she never seemed to show it. Like she was a tough cookie. But I can't imagine what that must have done to her, right? You mentioned the social isolation, Tanya, the mental health impact. So um I look back on that now and I wonder what it really felt like for her, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's bringing the cupcake to every birthday party you go to because you can't have
Right.
cake that's being served.
Yeah, absolutely. From an advocacy standpoint, continue to stand in awe of people like yourselves who don't accept the status quo and don't accept what is currently sort of being done or talked about or initiatives going on. Because look, you could just keep your head down, focus on your own family situation, and not sort of think about what that means to the greater CanPKU community or just the PKU community as a whole, right? But you both have chosen not to do that. You both have chosen this path to advocacy. Nicole, tell me why you chose a path to advocacy.
Well, my first kind of advocacy driven task was in relation to the low protein foods
Hmm.
that are so medically necessary from like a calorie point of view for
Hmm.
patients. Um, when Rosie was little and we started needing to order these foods, they're abhorrently expensive. So, a regular box of Kraft Dinner is maybe $2, and a low protein box of a similar product is about 15 probably now. So it's really unattainable for a lot of families. And when we started to have to order these foods, it was a financial burden for us, but we also realized that British Columbia was the only province in the country that didn't have at least some coverage for these foods. So I was pretty determined early on that that needed to change. And luckily, I'd I'd heard about the organization through the Metabolic Clinic and had gotten in touch with the president at the time, John Adams, who I think you're doing a segment with as well.
Yes.
And yeah, we kind of rallied together and rallied the BC troops, so to speak, and really spoke as a unified voice. And I like to call it the Horton Hears a Who syndrome. And when you have several voices collectively saying the same thing, it tends to be heard a little bit louder. So
Yeah. I had no idea that what you just said about the cost discrepancy associated with that. That's crazy to think about. And Tanya, what we're experiencing here in the States, and I'm curious is if it's also happening in Canada, there's this protein fad now, right here in the States. Like every item is uh, talking about and lauding how much protein it contains. Right. Is that fad also happening in Canada right now?
It is,
Yeah.
but we also benefit from the opposite fad a little bit of the, those who are more of the vegan side.
Ah,
There are some products that are created for them that do work for some of our community.
mm,
So that's I mean, fads, I guess, are helpful and hurtful
yeah.
depending on which side of it is.
Yeah, which side you kinda come down on, right? But I'm
Yeah.
I'm amazed right now at how big the protein fad is in here around, everything you buy, they have to tell you how much protein is in it, right? It's interesting. Um, for you, Tanya, how did your perspective change when you came into CanPKU and advocacy?
It's funny you call me an advocate because I know that if someone else I was talking about someone else, I would say, "Absolutely, that's the role you are." But don't see me so much as the advocate, as
Mhm.
much as I just do see me as a friend. Like,
Nice.
that's I was just a mom who got help from Nicole and was like, "I need to be the next Nicole for the next
Yeah.
person in line," right? So, and then as it goes, it grows.
Yeah.
So, I mean, medicine keeps us together, but it keeps us well, but
Yeah.
community keeps us
Yeah.
holistically well. Like,
Yeah.
so
I
that
appreciate that.
that was in the beginning, it was probably selfish. It was probably me being like, "I wanna get more involved so that I can learn more and have that information." But,
Yeah. Yeah.
eventually you wanna build that bridge for someone else.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I do, Tanya. Talk to us a little bit about CanPKU, the organization, CanPKU Plus. I know the plus is important because you are expanding your reach. Tell me a little bit about what the organization does for families.
Do you want me to go, Nicole? Do you wanna
Yeah,
take that?
Tanya, go ahead. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So like I was saying, medicine provides treatment.
Right.
CanPKU gives the belonging. It gives that community feel. We connect families. There's, yeah, in-person events. We try to collaborate as much as possible with clinics to support families,
Mhm.
supporting our adults. Newly diagnosed parents, phone calls through their early panic, late night messages coming through their phone from some of our adults. It's we do have we have 5 structural pillars, we would say, and we say CAMPKU cares. So it's community, advocacy, research, education, and support. And I think
Mm.
that that's yeah.
Yeah, and that's a brilliant that the acronym works out. I always get confused between acronym and mnemonic, but either way, that it works across your pillars. And maybe Nicole, maybe what you could talk a little bit about is which of those 5 or 4 CARE 5 that do you focus on you personally, Nicole, within the organization as in your role?
Oh, I think it's hard to say just one thing
Sure,
that
I'm
I
sure.
focus on, right? I think the role of the chair is to make sure that the organization is really focusing on all 5 of those pillars.
Mhm,
The S is for support and also sustainability. So
mm,
that's one of the things I do think a lot about. We have a million ideas and a thousand ways we'd like to help people more, but we're always somewhat constrained by our financial limitations and,
sure.
spend a lot of the resources we do have on time trying to gain more resources so that we can do more good. So sustainability is also a big piece that I think
Mm.
a lot about.
Talk and either one of you can take this. I love to talk a little bit more about research. It is one of the R's.
Yeah.
How much are patients involved in CanPKU plus research? I've seen other rare diseases where the patient involvement is very high in the research, others where it's not very high. Talk a little bit about that. We know that it's always beneficial, or we should know that it's always beneficial when patients are included and not excluded. Uh,
Mhm.
what is this organization's approach?
Um, I would say that we're not as directly involved in research as some organizations,
Mhm.
especially in Canada. And this may be a little bit of one of those differences between Canada and the US, but there's a real focus on, medical professionals and scientists being the leaders of research. Um, so we don't necessarily have the credentials. That being said, there is a push in research nowadays to include the patient voice from the beginning
Mm,
in terms of study design, and outcomes and measurement tools and all those good things. And I think it's really critical, because it really doesn't make a lot of sense to spend the money on research if we're studying something that the patients just don't care about
yes.
or don't need.
Mm,
And sometimes, I've been involved as a caregiver in some studies where it's come up. Yeah, I don't really think it's very feasible how this study is designed because I don't think patients will be willing to do X, Y, or Z. So I think it's really important that researchers do have patient advocates on their design study. as a co-author, co-collaborator, and not just somebody that's brought in kind of way down the road. It makes a big difference.
Yeah, I imagine it would. Especially as I like what you said about researchers, and they need to kind of understand the lived experience. So having those patient sort of touch points is probably really, really important, I would assume, you know.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
Yeah, and
Tanya from go
I
ahead,
would
Tanya.
say, like, patients live it every day.
Mhm.
So, without that perspective, the research risks missing what truly matters.
Yeah.
I saw a meme once, and it was, "Don't mistake your 10 minutes of Google for my medical degree." We can challenge that back with, "Don't mistake your book learning for lived experience," because 'cause they're
Yeah.
not the same. So, I think that we need each other, and as an organization, we try to connect those 2 entities. So, we're working to bring the trial information that's out
Mm,
there, what's going on in trials, to families, helping them understand what's gene editing or gene therapy,
yeah.
and how does that have a role, we haven't really, I guess we skipped over a bit when you asked about the plus, but with CanPKU plus, the plus includes homocystinuria or HCU, MSUD, maple syrup urinary disease, and UCDs, which is an umbrella for urea cycle disorders.
Mhm.
So there's different treatments in each of these landscapes.
Yeah.
So it's educating and bringing those pieces together.
When did the organization make the decision, Tanya, to kinda to add in those other disorders as well?
It's always when they being the 3, icon individuals, Tatiana, Christian, and John sat around the table and set up the organization. They named it at that time,
Gotcha,
Canadian PKU and Allied Disorders. They always
gotcha.
wanted that to be an open door,
Mhm.
sorry, a welcome mat, if you will.
Yeah.
But it was probably, Nicole, correct me if I'm wrong, 5 years ago, maybe 6, that, COVID messed up my brain for timelines. Um, so in around there that we said, "You know what? The welcome mat has not been enough. We're going to these events, we're meeting families that are affected by these disorders, and they don't have a Canadian voice. So the
Mm,
welcome mat's not enough. We're opening the door, we're inviting them in, and we are equally helping them as we would a PKU family."
yeah, that's important. Go ahead, Nicole, please.
Yeah, Tanya's being a little bit too modest here because when she was in the role of vice president, it was really her initiative that was pushing the plus
Mm,
and the need to really be a more vocal voice for those other disorders. And she really spearheaded that drive towards inclusivity that we're all embracing.
nice. I appreciate that. Well, good on you. That's great. Tanya, one of the other things I wanted to ask you, or Nicole too, please, both of you chime in. You mentioned the pillars of cares. Um, we're kind of like, and maybe you're not in a calendar year. I don't know your sort of strategic planning process, but I'm kind of curious. We're 2 months into this year now. What are the kind of strategic priorities for the organization in 2026, I guess?
Hmm.
I'm gonna let Nicole run with that one as our chair, that makes sure that we stay on target.
Stay on track, right? Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sure it's
because
easy.
I'm a squirrel, so I have my brain, yeah. Nicole reins me in.
Mhm.
We did just approve our fiscal year ends March 31st, so we did
Okay,
just approve the board just approved our draft budget for next fiscal year, which is, just based on the reality of this year, substantially lower overall with an operating budget, than it was the previous year.
mm,
So it's tricky, right? It's where do you cut and where do you what programs are most essential and how can we utilize every dollar we have to its maximum benefit. So we just worked through that process and we have a good plan for next year. But again, those 5 pillars are all very key to what we do. So I don't think there's necessarily one that is, more emphasized than the other.
sure.
um, I think we have plans for a couple of patient events next year, one in Quebec, which will be our Building Bridges event, which is a national event where we bring together researchers, scientists, medical professionals, and patients, caregivers, and get everybody in the same location and sharing the knowledge that we all have both ways, as Tanya said, right? Um, so that's really key, as well as our sponsors attend those events. So we get an opportunity to try their new products and talk to them about their research. And they're just really amazing events. So that is happening in June in Quebec. And then we also have Camp Magnifique that we will be hosting in September in Saskatchewan. So that's a little bit less heavy on the education side, a little bit more about community and socialization. But they're just such great events and chances for, that one's a real camp atmosphere. So it's really incredible for PKU um, kids, all ages, but kids especially, to be able to go to a camp and not have to worry about their diet,
Yeah.
to have those options there provided for them by people who understand, and just be able to go be kids and participate in camp.
And
and
have
have
that if
10 other kids eating the same food there. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember with one of the events that we were at, Jake was little, and we were saying, this person has PKU and that person has PKU, and it's kind of like, whatever. He's a boy. He was off and running and playing. But then he stopped in his tracks to one of the adults, and he looked at her and he said, I have that milky cup. So they shared the same dollar store formula shaker, and that was his connection. He was her best friend the rest of the weekend. So it's
That
just those
affinity was
little,
instantaneous, right? Yeah, that's
yeah.
so cool. That is so cool. Where in Quebec, Nicole? Maybe I'll drive up. It's not far from Boston if it's in Montreal.
Ooh, that would be great. I'll let Tanya speak to that. She's the planner.
I am the planner, and it is in Montreal.
Woo, all right.
We're just finalizing, some venue plans. Again, we go back to that whole funding situation.
Funding situation, yep.
Um, it's trying to provide the best event possible with the least amount of dollars possible.
Yep.
So, um, some final negotiations happening to make sure we're getting the best deal out there, but nonprofits everywhere, we're under strain, right? Industry
Yes.
funding is tightening. Families have less disposable income. The volunteer capacity is shrinking as people have to take on second jobs. It's
Mhm.
it's all real.
Yeah, it is all real, and I was gonna ask you a little bit about some of those access and sort of challenges, systemic challenges. You just mentioned some really important ones in terms of personal financial obligations that are challenging. Where from a policy perspective right now is sort of the Canadian government involved, I guess. I know here in the US, public health is in a very, very strange place right now, as I'm sure you know. Talk to me a little bit about that from a policy perspective within the Canadian government.
Well, we have some challenges in Canada too. I know worldwide, I think people have this rosy picture of Canadian healthcare. But the reality is that we have 10 different provincial healthcare systems. It's a provincial jurisdiction. So there's significant differences between what a patient in British Columbia can access versus what somebody in Saskatchewan or PEI or anywhere else can access. So we've got some real challenges there. And policy, looking at the funding point of view, there's also some challenges in Canada. um, for a long time, we couldn't be a charity. We are a not for profit, but we're not a registered charity. And part of that stems from what is now not true, but at the time, you couldn't be a charity if you spent more than 10% of your resources on advocacy.
Mm.
And we had significant challenges with accessing treatments, and we do spend a lot of our time and effort advocating for better care. Um, that rule thankfully has changed. So we are in the process of trying to convert into a registered charity, which will allow for, taxable receipts, which will help with hopefully with more donations. But we do still have some limitations. There are grants out there available. But again, if a certain percentage comes from grants, then we have to be considered soliciting corporation.
Yeah.
So there's all these kinds of barriers
Yeah.
to funding that really are quite a challenge, and again, we just want to help people.
Right.
So it's a bit frustrating.
Yeah. Charity versus nonprofit versus soliciting organization. It's a lot to sift through, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. And again, like you said, at the end of the day, you're just trying to help families, right? So it directly impacts them for sure, right? Yeah. In terms of what, you mentioned the bridge event and then you've got camp in September. What are some of the other sort of like I would go beyond just, activities or events that you're driving, but maybe more, sort of aspirations as to what you hope to see, I guess.
Right. I think we're pretty firmly rooted in the what can we actually achieve based on what we have. So
Right.
we do spend a lot of our energy just focused on those things, but and we do have lots of other programs that we continue year after year. We have our starter kit program, which we create these little kits that we then ship out to the various clinics across the country,
Hmm.
so that when a family is newly diagnosed or returning to diet, that clinic can just hand them a package and say, "Here, this will get you started," instead of them, scrambling with a 3-day-old baby, trying to figure out where in their city to buy a scale and, all these other things that they need. So,
Yeah.
yeah, our starter kit program is one of those little ways we introduce ourselves to the community, when they're new.
And
Um
giving credit where credit is due, because she won't either, just like this was a project that was, launched by Nicole.
Awesome. That's great. I love that you guys take the time to give each other credit on your respective wins. But you raised a really good point, and I guess I'm a planner by nature, right? But I think what you really just said is hyper important. That it's like, look, we can have this vision and aspirations, and we should because every organization needs like a north star or whatever that they're driving towards. But I really appreciate what you just said about we're focused on like what we can do right now with the resources that we have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think ideally, if we had unlimited funding, we would have more people that could spend a significant amount of their time. Tanya's our only full-time um, employee, so to
Right.
speak.
Right.
And so that makes it really challenging to expand our projects and our outreach to, beyond what we already do. Um, so yeah, it would be lovely to have more people that could really dedicate significant time to connecting the community, having more regular, even if they weren't in person. We don't need to have in-person events every month, but it would
Right.
be lovely to still be able to connect. And yeah, there's all kinds of things we could do if we had
Mm,
more resources.
yeah. Of
And
course.
some of those resources that come with some of these amazing volunteers that we don't currently have in our pool, those who have the ability to write a great grant and
Mm,
get that funding, because I'm trying, but I don't usually succeed. So, so I have, but not so. Yeah, just having those valuable people that have the skills that come with them as a person is also.
yeah, and we all know grant writing is very much an art and a science, right?
Yeah, it's way harder.
Yeah,
Yeah.
having applied for and been denied 2 grants already this year, I can empathize
Yeah.
quite a bit.
So you're not the guy I'm going to, right, Richard?
No, don't go to me. No.
Fair enough, fair enough. We'll keep that.
Tanya, you talked a little bit about, how important it was for you at the beginning and connected with Nicole. When some of these parents come up to you now, um, what's the message that you give them right off the bat? I'm
It will
curious.
be okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Enjoy that baby. I'm
Mhm.
gonna cry. Um, don't let this shadow anything that's happening as with your baby and
Yeah.
you. Like,
Yeah.
because it's terrifying. Like Nicole said, that scale of a 3 month for us, it wasn't even the fact that he was 3 months, 3 days, because he wasn't. But
Right.
at this point, I am questioning everything,
Everything.
including how much protein is in a vegetable.
Right.
How can I possibly pick the right scale? It
Mhm.
doesn't matter. If it measures food, it's fine. But I didn't know that.
Yeah, but
So
you don't know that at that time.
you don't know,
Yeah.
you're questioning everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So
Yeah.
just those 2
I
cents.
It's same advice I give too. We see
Yeah.
it on, Facebook groups all the time. We'll have a new family say, "I was just diagnosed and what do I need to know?" And my number one response is just breathe,
Mm.
take one day at a time. And if I could go back in time, I would worry less and enjoy baby more because
Yeah.
man, the fear and worry really robs you of some of that joy.
Yeah, I bet. I
The one
and
thing that I love that you do, Nicole, is sometimes I see you've posted a picture of the 2 girls, and you're like, "One of these has PKU.
Right.
Which one? You tell
Yeah.
me."
You can't tell.
You can't
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's Nicole, remind me, what are the ages of your kids?
So Rosie just turned 18. She has
Okay.
PKU. And our second, Carmela, does not have PKU, and she just turned 15.
Okay, so
Um,
you're in the thick of the teenage years. Tanya, yourself?
Jacob is 15 as well.
Okay, so you're in the thick
Uh,
of the
I'm
thi
in the thick of it. I also have 2 older girls from my previous relationship that
okay.
are in their 20s giving me grandbabies and all the good.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Is your daughter preparing for what's after, like, 18, you kinda prepare for the next chapter?
yeah,
Yeah.
she is. So that's one of those things that I do feel like we've done fairly well with Rosie is, we started educating her about PKU before she could speak,
Mm,
teaching her all the different foods that were, no foods, and teaching her why it was important to stay on diet. And we switched when she was a preteen to the simplified diet. So that meant instead of measuring the milligrams of phenylalanine in every single food that went in her mouth, we were simply measuring grams of protein and only in the foods that had like significant amounts of phenylalanine.
mhm.
So that made things easier and made it so that she could actually manage her diet. And now she's grade 12 and she's managing her diet fully on her own,
Fully on.
really. And that's a big relief now that I'm thinking about her going away and
Yeah,
living by herself because there's serious consequences when people go off diet with these disorders. We're luckily with PKU, it's the least severe.
right.
Um,
But still,
you-
yeah,
but still has an impact for
yeah.
sure.
And with Jake, Tanya's similar approach? Is he on, like, more a simplified approach as well?
Yeah, he's more
Yeah.
simplified. We've also had the pleasure of being introduced to some of the medications that he does respond to, which gives
Mm,
him a bit more of an increase in what he can tolerate.
mhm.
But again, the mother guidance has always come from Nicole. I remember reaching out being like, "He's being a jerk. Is this PKU?" Like, because you just everything, you start playing at everything, and she'd be like, "Who cares if it is? You still have to discipline him and
Right, he
say
still can't
no."
be a jerk.
Like, you still can't let him be a jerk. So, it's yeah,
Yeah.
it's those yeah,
Yeah, it's those things, like you say, you question everything. I appreciate that. Yeah,
yeah.
for sure, that's great. Well, and being 15-year-old boys, haven't been one,
Oh,
we're not a lot of fun.
you
Yeah.
guys are tough. I say to
We're
my girls all the time, "I thought you were tough. I'm sorry. You're
Oh, that's great.
way harder, but
Well,
it's a boy."
um, I let's talk about calls to action. I wanna make sure that people come away from this conversation with something that they can learn, something that they can support. What should we tell people?
Well, I think the easiest way to support CanPKU Plus as an organization, and all of the rare disease metabolic conditions that we support, is just to become a member. Go to our
Mm,
website,
mhm,
join up the membership. There's a few different classes of membership depending on whether you're a patient or kind of living directly with one of these disorders, or just there to support, or you're a medical professional. But for most individuals, it's like 35 or $25 a year. It's really reasonable. You, of course, are welcome to make extra donations if you are in the position to do so. But yeah, there's two good reasons for becoming a member. three, actually. One is that it keeps you in tune with all the different events and research and education that we have going on. We do send out regular newsletters or,
Mm,
invitations to be part of a research study if we hear of one that's happening, etc. So one, it keeps you informed. Two, obviously, the financial aspect is a help
sure.
to us. And three, it also makes a difference when we are advocating to policymakers about whatever it may be, whether it's better coverage of the formulas in foods or paying for access to one of the new medications. They do often come back at us and say, "Well, how many members do you have? Like
Mm,
how
they
many
want to
people
know.
are you representing?" They want to know that, and so it's a little bit humbling when we are sitting there and have to say, "Well, we have less than 100 members, but
But yeah,
you know." So yeah, it does really help if we can have strong numbers that way.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Well, let's get those numbers up, right? Right? Let's get them up.
That'd be
Uh,
great.
CanPKU.org is the website, and I was just peeking on my phone. Canadian.pku is your Instagram. So for our Instagram folks, Canadian.pku is where they can find you. But we'll make sure folks head over to CanPKU.org. Tanya, Nicole, this has been a really, really informative to me and also a lot of fun. You're both very delightful. I love talking to both of you. Um, I can't wait to finish this series, get more people involved, get more of these stories out there. But let me just start by saying thanks to both of you. I know how busy you folks are, moms, organizations you need to run, day jobs, etc. It's a lot. So thanks for taking time to chat with me. I really, really appreciate both of you coming on today.
Thanks
No
for
problem.
amplifying
Thank
our
you.
voice.
Yeah,
It's valuable.
Wonderful. And we'll be seeing you both again real soon.
you bet.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, Richard.